Okay, this is an interview with Sian Davies about my disappearance for a number of hours. Probably the most scary experience of my life. Okay, so starting off, do you remember that day well?
It was a long time ago now. I think you were 9, right? So that's 11.
11 years
It's
ago.
11 years ago. But I do remember much of it. I certainly remember the feelings that I had at that time.
Okay. In basic terms, like a basic rundown, what do you remember happening on that day?
Well, I remember that I was at uni and the plan was for you to be, as usual, going to the WAC Arts Club that you went to with Jasmine on that day every week. I think it was a Thursday, wasn't it?
Briefly.
And so I expected to take my time getting home from uni because I was on the other side of London, and just come and meet you at a leisurely pace. It was kind of just expected it to go normal, and then I got the phone call and it all just turned to turmoil for me, really.
So when you got the phone call and who called you, how did you react?
I believe it was Jasmine, and I was just in disbelief. And I think I probably was shouting at her quite a lot. I was like, well, how could you have lost him? I think she'd gone straight to WAC after she'd looked for you for a while or something. So she'd called me from there, or maybe it was Maggie that called me, and I was just like, I didn't believe it. I was like, I couldn't understand what had happened.
Maggie's the woman who...
Yeah, Maggie's the manager of the WAC Arts Centre.
Okay.
And she'd called me to say that this had happened. And I just was completely beside myself, in panic.
Okay, where were you when you were informed?
Okay, so I was on my way home from uni, and it wasn't quite a straightforward journey. Like, I had to get to Stratford first on the overground from South London, from Lewisham, and then make my way from there. And I think I was on the overground on my way to Stratford.
The train
I was taking the train, and then I got to Stratford, and by that time I'd had the news, and I had to think, what was the quickest way to get back to North London, really?
So that was your initial response once you heard the news. It was just try and find the quickest way back to the...
Absolutely, get as quickly as I could to North London to try and help with the search, I guess, to kind of find you.
So this was, up until that point, just an average day. So what would have been the plan, or what would you have done if this had never happened?
Well, I was expecting to, as usual, come and meet you at WAC. Usually I used to get there a bit early and, sort of sit and wait in a cafe. So I had plenty of time to get you before your class finished, or your club finished.
So you're hoping to have a lot of,
I was
time
hoping
to just sit?
Yeah, I wasn't in a panic about what time I was going to get there. I was kind of leisurely. That was the one time I didn't have to rush. That was the one day I didn't have to rush home from uni, because you were at WAC usually. And so I was sort of, slowly making my way home, not in any panic at all. I imagined I would get off the train at Belsize Park, go and sit in a coffee shop and wait for you to finish and collect you, come home, have dinner. Sort of a normal day, really. I didn't have any expectations of the day.
So what was going through your mind while travelling? So what was the initial things you were thinking about? Because when I interviewed Dad, it was kind of like he was thinking specifically that all the worst things could have happened. Like, I could have been picked up by a stranger.
Yeah,
what kind of stuff was
that
going
is
through
exactly the sort of thing that was going through my head. That some unsavoury character would have come across you, realised that you were a vulnerable child, and tried to take advantage of you in some way or lure you away. I guess that was my worst fear, or that that you were. I was really worried about the fact that you would have been in a panic, and how you were feeling, how scared you must have been, and what would you do? I was wondering whether, what had I taught you about how to keep yourself safe and where might you have gone. Like, would you have gone to the police station? Would you have found that? Would you have known where to go? Yeah, I just...
And at this point, you weren't expecting, like, do you think at this point you trusted I would have been doing what I actually did?
I really had no idea. Like I said, the thoughts, your mind just goes straight to the worst things. That was my panic moment until I knew you were safe. Those were the things that were running through my mind, that the absolute worst things could have happened. You could have had an accident. You know, like silly things like falling down a ditch. I know that sounds like a cliche, but, you know, I imagined you might have walked across the heath or something, go to a place that you knew, and, I don't know, could have had an accident and then not been found or been hurt in some way, or...
You just had all these...
Yeah, there wasn't really any friends of yours that lived near there that you might have knocked for. I didn't think that it was the place, although it's a place that you knew, there was only the school that you would have known as a safe place. So I couldn't think of you finding any sanctuary anywhere close by. I guess I hoped that you would do something, but I didn't. I just thought of the worst things, to be honest. I didn't think of all the possible good things. I just imagined the worst, I guess.
Was there anything that specifically you thought might happen? Like, so if you were to narrow it down out of all the outcomes which you think could have happened, was there anything specific that you thought was most likely?
I think a mother's worst nightmare is somebody that was going to harm you, murderer or paedophile. The absolute worst thing, that they would find a vulnerable lone child walking the streets and think it was their lucky day. That was my worst fear, and that was what was in my head.
So the absolutely worst thing that could have happened is what was going through your head.
That's kind of when you're in panic mode. I believe that's what...
Must have been a very horrible feeling.
It was an absolute nightmare, I can assure you.
So, what was your plan of action when you, like, where did you actually go to first? Did you go to work or did you go home?
No, because I didn't actually make it home before you were found, to be honest. So, in my plan of action, I guess, I think there was something wrong with the train. So I got off the train from Lewisham at Stratford, and then there was something wrong. I knew the trains were taking too long. It just didn't feel like getting on the next train. I imagine it was, I think it was like the overground from Stratford that came to Kentish Town or Hampstead. That's what I was planning to do. But then there was a delay or something, because they weren't that many years ago, they weren't very reliable. And it was just going to take too long. So I ran back to the taxi rank, and I was obviously in such distress. I screamed at the taxi driver, "You've got to let me in, my son's missing." And he wouldn't take me because, I don't know, maybe I just looked like a crazy woman. And he refused to let me in the cab. So I had to go back to the train station and get on the tube. I think that was what I did. No, was it? No, I must have...
Sorry, take your time.
I must have gone back to the overground because I was still in contact with people. People were calling me on my mobile. And I think my next plan of action was to get anybody that might have been in the location out looking for you. So I must have spoken to your dad at that point. I don't think he was anywhere in the area, but he was on his way, I knew that. And then
Chloe and Sean were living in the house.
Yeah, so Chloe and Sean were living here, so I must have phoned Chloe and Sean, and I know that Sean was out on his bike looking for you in the locality. He'd come to the house, and I don't know where else he'd gone, but he was like riding around on his bike looking for you. Chloe had Kyla, so Kyla was really little at the time. I don't think Chloe wasn't at home for some reason.
I recall no one was at home when I actually arrived.
Yeah, no one was here, but she got Sean to go out looking for you, but she couldn't be mobilised because she had the baby, and I don't know where she was, but she wasn't local. She wasn't in the house anyway. And they were the only people that I could find that were close enough to be out looking for you. So yeah, I just got our little network to be aware that this was happening and out looking for you if possible.
So you said that you don't think you arrived home until after I was found.
So I think what happened was while I was en route home, Maggie called me and told me you turned up at WAC.
And you went home from there.
No, I was still on my way. I was on my way back to North London, so I just came straight home because I think Maggie had called me and your dad. She told me, you know, she did all the right things. I was quite reassured by Maggie because she's a sensible adult. And she'd said, we've called the police, they're out looking for him. You know, like that reassured me a little bit. I mean, I was still in a panic mode until you were found, but she'd done everything that a sensible adult had done. And she was also saying how remorseful Jasmine was. So I kind of, you know, like I felt a bit bad, but I was still really, really angry with Jasmine.
I recall how angry you were when we actually saw you.
Yeah, well,
that was actually...
And then I got home and somebody brought you home. I think you stayed at WAC until your dad got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was with Dad until, I waited at WAC until Dad arrived.
Yeah, so you'd gone to WAC, Maggie had reassured you, you had Jasmine, and then your dad came to get you and I'd come home. So I don't know whether I was at home waiting for you to come back.
I believe I didn't see you until Dad took us back home because I had to speak to the police beforehand. And then
right, yeah, so I knew you were safe, but I'd come home and I was waiting for you here. But I was relieved.
So about when we actually got home, when you first saw Jasmine, because I remember when we saw each other, the first thing I did was run up to you and cry in your arms, was hugging you.
Yeah.
And obviously I know I'm a big man now, but I was very small at the time. So what was your... how did you feel when your little man just ran up to you to give you a massive hug?
Yeah, I just wanted to hold you and feel your little soft cheeks and know that you were safe in my arms. I was just so relieved to see your face and know that you were fine.
I don't think you let go of me for like a half hour or something.
I don't think I did. That sounds right. That sounds like me. But yeah, I think that is probably a really good description, is that I just didn't want to let you go. Like, you know, like, because you'd gone it felt like you'd been gone for me, that I just didn't want to let you go again, I guess.
So, alright, so we're going to run it back a little bit. Back to when you first heard that I had been found.
Yeah.
What was the feelings you had? Because Dad, for example, said it was the best feeling that he could ever have had because it was just relief.
Yeah, relief is the word. I think there was another there was an outpouring of tears when I found out and realised that you'd gone, and it had sunk in that you'd gone. First of all, it was disbelief, but then when I realised that you were definitely gone, I was just in absolute bits, tears streaming. But then, you know, like the kind of problem-solving part of you steps in, and you're phoning everybody, and you're getting, what's the word?
You became very calculating, kind of just working out every
just kind of focused on what you have to do or everything that you can do to rectify the situation, I guess. So you just become mobilised in that way. So you start getting focused on that, and that's helpful. But then when I knew that you were fine, there was another burst of emotion, of relief, tears of joy, I guess.
Okay, and then once we met, I recall there was, after the outburst of emotion from both of us when we were just happy to see each other, then it came to discipline with Jasmine. Because I don't remember this too well, but like when you first saw Jasmine, what went through your head, and then after, like, just all that emotion went through your head, what did you say to her?
I don't remember exactly what I said to her. I don't remember the exact words.
Just like,
but I know I was like, what were you thinking? How could you have not turned your back on him? You knew the rules. You knew that you were responsible. I did hold her responsible because, in spite of her being quite a young child anyway, you knew the rules about it. You both told me, we agreed this together, that everybody felt that they were going to listen, focus, concentrate. I wouldn't have allowed you to go that place on your own without feeling reassured that you were both capable of doing that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you go to WAC. And I think we'd had lots of conversations in the lead up to it and every week since that, you've got to be looking out for each other. You've got to get on. You mustn't be fighting with each other on the way. All you had to do was get, a 10-minute walk from one place to another safely. I couldn't understand why that was such a hard thing to do. And I couldn't also with the explanation that, you know, 1 minute he was there and I turned around and he was gone. I couldn't understand how it happened. And I guess nothing Jasmine could say could make it okay in my mind. But then I think I did have a bit of I did feel a bit sorry for her because I could see how sorry she was. It was obviously a really bad day for her as well, you know. So there's part of me that was just completely angry and upset. And, you know, when anything bad happens, you kind of want to find out why it happened and blame someone. And I did blame Jasmine. I did feel that she was responsible.
What I'm gathering from both you and Dad about the situation, because obviously while I was in it, I wasn't worried about how anyone else felt. Yeah. I was obviously, being a very small child myself, I was worried about my own well-being, and then I just wanted to see you and Dad. That was through the whole experience. That's the only thing going through my head.
Because that would have made you feel safe, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So, but now when I look back on the situation, what I'm hearing from you and Dad is, even though, I mean, I still look at Jasmine as the person who initiated it, but it's also a bit of myself to blame because it started off with an argument between me and her. But I feel like once the thing actually went wrong, and I know how Jasmine always says, like, when I was younger, she wished I wasn't there. It's like, but when I actually did disappear, it's like her true, like, feelings and affection towards me did come out. She's very remorseful when it happened, and I know now that I try not to talk about it with her because I know she still feels bad about it.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been really, really traumatic for her. Not only did she lose her brother and suddenly realise how important he was to her and how much she loved you, but she knew she was going to get it, and she knew it was her mistake. I think that's the thing. And then there was other feelings, you know, like I felt so stupid about trusting you both with that because I was obviously wrong because you weren't ready for that. That's how I felt. I felt like a bad mother, and that was, you know, so I was pretty much beating myself up as well. That how could I have been so stupid? How could I have trusted you? I mean, to be honest, like 11 and 9, well, she was nearly 12, wasn't she? Because she's 2.5 years older than you. So, you know, like, that's, you know, you can be quite sensible at that age. And I think, you know, we had a lot of talks. I felt like I wouldn't have trusted you if I hadn't done as much preparation as we had done and discussions. But I've just felt really stupid because the thing that is your worst fear actually came true, was that you'd had a fight, you know, an argument, or one or both of you weren't thinking, and the worst happened, really.
Okay. So from my knowledge, you didn't get a true explanation of what had happened until after we got back. So how?
No, yeah, I didn't understand quite what had happened. No.
Obviously, you know how everything went down on your end, and now I know how it went down on your end. But how do you think everything had gone before me and Jasmine got to explaining it to you? So, what do you think had happened between me and her? And absolutely.
I don't know. It's difficult to say because I don't remember that detail really. I remember now because I've gone over the explanations that you've both given me in my head, and that is now the story and the narrative of what happened that day. I couldn't really imagine how it had happened. I guess I thought she walked off and left you, or she wasn't watching you, or that you'd been stroppy and walked off in the other direction. I don't know. I don't really remember. Okay. I don't really remember. I think it's kind of been mixed up with the explanation that you've both given me, rather than, you know, what I was worried about at the time. It's kind of hard to think back to that.
Well, to refresh your memory, I'm going to go on my take on the events on my side. I'm going to give a rundown of what I did, all my actions, and how I felt in the situation. And then try and think back to how you felt when I explained this to you. Being a little kid, how you felt of my actions, whether you thought I did the right thing.
Oh, you mean
after I had actually told you?
After you'd gone missing? Or the lead up to you going missing?
No, after I had gone missing. When I told you when I told you my side of the events, like exactly how it is, so I'm going to go over it again to refresh your mind. Just tell me anything you recall about how you felt. When I spoke to Dad, he told me that he was really surprised because thinking of a 9-year-old doing the stuff that I did and taking
Is it helpful to tell me what your dad said or ask me first?
No, but what I'm saying is that's how he reacted. Whereas I don't recall ever asking you how you thought of that, my actions, beforehand.
You mean about the fact that you walked home first?
Yes. So
and then went to whack? Because that's where you ended up. Nobody found you. You found people. Pretty much. God, that was what made me feel just so like, I'm so glad that you had like been paying attention. You know, obviously we did that school run all the time. It would seem logical that you would know your way home, but you didn't get the bus, which is what we usually do. You know, you walked home. So yeah, I was really, really proud that you had the presence of mind, even though you must have been in a bit of a panic, that you found your way home. Well, that was it. I've got the neighbour out looking for you as well. I'd called them. Anyone who had the number. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was really proud that you'd had the presence of mind to find your way home. And then I was gutted that no one was at home for you, because then you must have been in a real panic.
Yeah, because when I got home, I was sitting there for about 10-15 minutes. And I think what freaked me out more was that no one was home, because to me, whenever I'd gone home, someone was there.
Yeah, because usually you'd been accompanied home, Ricky.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like, just in my head, I got home, no one was there, and then that's when I freaked out. Because the next thing that went through my head is what happened to my family. Or what's happened to the rest of my family. Wow. And what makes me really happy with my actions after that is I walked to whack from home. And I had never done that before. Luckily, I had the spatial awareness to know where whack was and how to get it. Yeah. And in my opinion, that's something big, because if I didn't know that, I may never have got to finding you guys. Yeah.
I think you probably would have stayed at home. And I was just thinking about you saying, I stayed here for 10 to 15 minutes. But you know, when you're really little or when you're in a panic, there's no real sense of time. You know, you can say it felt like this long, but actually it might have only been a few minutes that you were here. And I guess another way it might have gone is if you had stayed where you were at home, someone would have come here because, you know, Sean was out, the neighbours were looking for you. Somebody would have come to the door at some point. We were all on our way home. Police would have known where we lived. Somebody would have come here at some point. So yeah, had you not have arranged to go to whack, I would have thought staying at home at your front door would have been the best place. Somebody would have come eventually, wouldn't they?
It was going off of teachings about stranger danger, which is why I didn't want to stay
in one place. Yeah, I wanted to keep moving. I can understand that.
I wanted to get to somewhere that I know was safe, and at the time, obviously, I didn't have a phone or keys. So, like, if this event were to happen today, all I have to do is text or call someone and just say I'm
20 years old.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, in this day and age, I have a phone.
Yeah, but you have a 9-year-old sister, and I guess how do we imagine she might react in that situation? She doesn't have a phone. She doesn't have keys.
I'd hate to think of this happening to Ruby.
Yeah.
Because,
you wouldn't wish it on anyone, would you?
Well, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Like, but I think also this event has like changed how I act around Ruby myself. Because like I don't let Ruby walk off 10 feet in front of me, pretty much.
No, you keep your eye on her.
She stays right next to me as long as I can. And you've seen there are times when we're going
super protective.
Yeah, anytime we're out, like, even, like, you guys might be comfortable with her going a bit further forwards or just lagging her behind a little bit, but with me, I just don't feel like letting her anywhere where I can't see her.
Yeah.
Like, anywhere, but if she's anywhere behind me, I want her right next to me.
I find the best way is to hold her hand.
I was going to say holding her hand, that would be...
You don't have to look at her and you know she's there.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to make you, you know, when you eventually have children, quite an
Very
overprotective parent, you know, or maybe an anxious parent. I don't know. I wonder.
I'm already an anxious person, so I don't know.
I guess, you know, that the other side of it is that all the sort of teaching I've done about thinking about your safety, like, it did all kick in, and I guess I was really proud of that. And, you know, I think being overprotective and doing the thinking for your children isn't always helpful. You know, something I noticed recently with Ruby is crossing the road. Like, because I always do it with her, I'm always thinking for her, saying stop, wait for the green man. I talk her through it all the time. Automatically I do that because I want her to be safe. But actually, sometimes I need to step back and let her do it, because there's been a couple of occasions where, you know, she's kind of gone on ahead and I've had to stop her and she's not thinking or she's not looking.
There's times when
and
I
I
do
think
that.
that's the really difficult thing, isn't it? It's the balance between being very protective of your child and keeping them away from any danger. But if you do that to such a...
If you coddle them too much,
Yeah.
it's kind of like they don't have
then
a
they
chance to
don't
think for
get an
themselves.
opportunity to learn those skills. And that's the thing, you know. You did learn a lot from that. You know, unfortunately, you may have developed a bit of anxiety about things and children and whatnot, but then you did learn a lot of skills from that, or you at least were able to put them into practice. Skills that you already had.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish this upon anyone, because, like, talking to both my parents about this, now hearing both your sides of the situation, because what's interesting is, though it, like, the situation for both of you is quite similar, that you guys were both very far away and then you were making your way home while it happened, and you kind of like more like a viewer of the situation than someone within it, for the most part. I can just tell how much it hurt. This whole situation hurt both of you. How much it affected you, and I'd never wish that upon anyone. I'm sure you wouldn't as well. It's just
no.
But yeah, all right. So this is like I've got 3 more questions. So how were you expecting that day to end in terms of after you got us from WAC? Because you said what you planned to do up until WAC had ended.
Just a normal evening, really. Just pick you up, bring you home, give you dinner, prepare for school the next day. Nothing out of the ordinary.
And after this, because I recall Jasmine was like in her last year, I think, New End, so
year
she
6.
wouldn't be taking me to school anymore. So what kind of precautions did you take to prevent an event like this happening in the future? Because I don't recall when I got keys or a phone. I don't recall if it was a year or 2 afterwards.
I think that you weren't allowed. I don't think you were allowed to go to WAC after that, were you? You had to go to after school club. Because I didn't trust Jasmine. And then, and the days that I was at uni, because that's the thing, the reason you were after school club is because I was at uni and I had things at uni. So I couldn't get back across London, so you had to be somewhere safe. I think you had to go back to Kidzuza, didn't you?
I think so.
Believe so. I think you had to give up WAC for that season. Pretty much soon after that, wasn't it? Yeah, because I knew you were safer at school.
Well, it's fair. That's a fair thing.
And then you're right, it was towards the end of the year, because it was summertime, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming towards the end of the year anyway. You probably only had a few more sessions left anyway, and then Jasmine left that school. So, yeah, you didn't go to WAC after that because you were too little. That was my first year of uni, I think.
Then I had to learn quite quick, like, how to take care of myself coming home.
Well, no, because you
starting my
didn't do
year.
that until year 6.
I think it was towards the end of year 5, that's what I mean.
I think it was me or your dad that used to collect. Well, yeah, but you would have been in year 4 when this happened.
Mm-hmm. No, that's what I'm saying. A year later
Yeah.
is when I
So
started.
a year later, well, towards the end of the year, yeah, year 5, you had to start doing it yourself. But
So
at least
it
you
took
didn't
a
have.
while.
At least there wasn't the you know the the issue of having an argument with Jasmine on your way home. It's just you.
Yeah. But with that, I'm just saying that like it took a while before you felt. I'm not even sure if you felt comfortable with me taking myself home, but it took a while.
That's the
before.
point. It wasn't you taking yourself home. I never made that choice. I made the choice for Jasmine to take you down the road to Whack, which wasn't even as far as home. That's what I'm saying. She was supposed to be the responsible one, and I guess that's why I came down holding her. I was angry with her.
Okay. Well, to wrap this up, in one sentence, how would you explain this day?
I've never been so scared of anything in my life. Absolute horror and trauma and fear of what might have happened.
Thank you, Miss Davis.
Oh, thank you,
Been
Mr.
very helpful.
Thomas.
You've been very helpful.